Hello and welcome to Learning with Lovo. Today I will be discussing formation approaches and landings. There's a variety of reasons why you may want to approach and land with other players. It's a faster way to get two jets on the ground, and staying in close formation during weather penetrations can ensure deconfliction between flight members. Also, it looks pro and can be a fun challenge. Some of the crucial topics here I have covered in previous videos, such as formations, the carrier approach, marshal and brake, so I encourage you to check out my other tutorials. I will also be glossing over some navigation aids like TACAN and ILS. Let's begin with the basics. Basic premise. You and your flight want to land, but there is thick cloud between you and the airfield or carrier, or you just want to stay together in a flight and perform a division brake. I'll go over a section approach getting you to the airfield pattern safely, then a section straight in, division airfield brake, division carrier brake, and then for fun, a division straight in. Restrictions. There's nothing really stopping you from trying formation landings in terrible weather, but real life restrictions are something like a full dry runway length available with a minimum width of 100 feet for small jets and 125 feet for larger ones. A crosswind component less than 10 knots, weather that has a cloud ceiling of more than 500 feet and a visibility of 1.5 miles. Aircraft that are light and similarly weighted. If the conditions are better than this, or you just want to give it a go, then you can do a formation approach. Let's get started with the first part, the approach. You have finished your mission and you want to land, but due to the weather, you're not going to see the airfield until you're quite low. We're assuming there isn't a human ATC to guide you in, and that ED haven't updated the AI ATC to be able to control instrument meteorological condition approaches. Flying through cloud can be dangerous, so take a look at the F10 map, or your moving map to check that the terrain isn't mountainous or particularly hilly on the approach to your airfield. When you know which way you can safely approach your airfield, find the ATC frequency by clicking on the airfield in the F10 map, as well as the nav beacon info for that airfield. It may have a TACAN, an ILS system, a VOR beacon, or nothing. You may also already have a waypoint set. If none of these exist, you can input a waypoint using the coordinates shown on the F10 map when hovering over the airfield. You can input the beacon into your system now, and ILS will guide you on a glide path when you are close enough. Until then, you may need to use one of the other methods. You should now know the distance and direction to the airfield. Now you need to know the active runway so you can approach lined up with it. Announce inbound on the comms menu. The AI ATC will tell you a heading, the QFE and the active runway. This is all the help we can currently expect from the AI ATC, and the nav info is just a straight path to the airfield, not a guide onto runway heading. We'll ignore this for now. Set your altimeter to the airfield's QFE. Input the runway as a course. If this course fits in the safe area you identified earlier, great, we can approach right onto the runway heading. If not, we'll approach from the safe direction. Join a landing pattern when visual, and land. We now know where the airfield is, the runway heading, and the direction to approach from. Fly to meet that course now. Take a second to look at the wind in the briefing info. Decide if it's suitable for a formation landing, and position your flight so that they will be upwind when you're on runway heading. The next question is when to descend. There is a handy trick to figure that out using the 60-to-1 rule. This rule states that a 1-degree turn or descent over 60 miles will result in a 1-mile deviation. We can multiply by 5 to say a 5-degree turn or descent will give a 5-mile deviation. 5 miles is roughly 30,000 feet, so flying 60 miles at a 5-degree nose down will give you a descent of 30,000 feet. Basically, we can double our altitude in thousands of feet to give the distance we will cover in a 5-degree descent. We can work the other way to say we can halve our distance in miles to give our descent commence height in thousands of feet. Now we don't want to land right on the beacon, so we can add 5 to 10 miles to the descent point so as to arrive before the airfield, hopefully visual and able to fly a 2.5 to 3 degree final. Take the distance from the airfield and half it. That's the height in thousands of feet you would need to be able to start your descent right now. If this is too far from your current height, work out what it would be 10 or 15 miles closer and use the next 5 to 10 miles to get to that altitude. Begin your descent. If you're too low to easily adjust, double your altitude in thousands of feet to get the distance you should be descending and add a 5 to 10 mile buffer to it. Fly to this distance and begin your descent. If you're too high to easily adjust, you could perform a circling descent to get to a better altitude without getting closer to the airfield. Or if you're feeling spicy, go vertically down. This is the point where you can decide to approach as a division or sections. If you want to perform an airfield break, you can stay as a division in parade formation. If you want to perform section simultaneous landings, split into 2 fingertip sections in about 4 to 5 mile trail. Now you're on your course and on your 5-degree descent. Get to 250 knots and into parade or fingertip before you enter the clouds. It can be quite difficult to hold parade in cloud, but it is important to stay close, as if a wingman strays too far away, they will quickly lose visual and be a hazard to the flight. If this happens to you, and if you know you aren't at risk of hitting terrain, dive under the cloud and rejoin on the flight when they come under the cloud ceiling. As lead, you should use the radio to inform the flight of any speed or direction changes. Perform these very slowly and gently. Soon you will be below the clouds, and hopefully the airfield is where you expect it to be. I'm just coming out now at 1.3. Runway in sight, Dave. I'm going nose up slightly.
Copy.
You should find your 5-degree descent will bring you short of the airfield, meaning you can nose up to a shallower descent from now. A shallow descent is very useful in a formation landing. Now we begin the landing phase. Let's start with the section formation landing. As a flight lead, you fly a shallow approach from final. You will give many calls to your wingman so you can keep the same drag in AOA as you configure for landing. As before, keep any changes to direction and speed gentle and announced. As wingman, fly slightly step down from your lead. You may soon intercept the ILS signal. Lead can follow this. Dash 2 would remain focused on maintaining formation. Before 5 miles, lower your landing gear with a call of gear, gear, go. Selecting gear down in time with the word go. Hold your jet steady as your gear travels. After 3 greens, let your speed slowly drop and call half flaps with half flaps go. As your speed drops and flaps extend, you may notice a nose-up bounce as you gain more lift from the flaps. Hold your velocity indicator on the runway as your speed decreases and your jet settles. When stable, call for full flaps with full flaps go. And once again, control your jet as it bounces. As lead, trim nose up for the heaviest jet. If it's you, trim as normal. If it's your wingman, slightly over trim. Continue to fly the approach. As a wingman, you should stay focused on lead and staying in formation. I found it easier not to bother with trim and just use backstick to maintain AOA. The style of flying is now quite different as throttle changes significantly affect your attitude. To move back in the formation, nose up to increase drag while adding power to not change rate of descent. To move forward, add power while maintaining attitude. To move higher or lower, adjust power up and down. You are now both configured for landing and on speed. As wingman, continue the approach until 2 to 3 miles out and begin to add the runway threshold to your visual scan. Within 2 miles, lead should call to cut away. This means both of you should begin to line up with the middle of your half of the runway. As you cross the threshold, the wingman should try and touch down at the same time as lead. Now your wheels down. Dash 1 should roll a little long, while Dash 2 brakes to create distance between the 2 jets. If lead needs to taxi over Dash 2's half of the runway to exit it, Dash 2 should call cleared cold to let lead know you are slow enough to not collide. Congratulations, you have performed a section approach and landing. Let's talk about the division airfield break. The approach is exactly the same except there are now more ships in parade formation than the section approach. Position your flight away from the direction you will be braking towards. So if you're braking left, position your flight parade right. You can now reduce the distance buffer for the approach distance to 1 to 3 miles, as you will be levelling out at pattern height, usually 800 feet, which will give you 1.6 miles extra distance. Accelerate to 350 knots and overfly the runway at 800 feet. Lead will brake towards the end of the runway. Each wing will delay their brake by 15 seconds. Division carrier brake. I won't be going into detail on the carrier landing pattern and marshal as I have done so in a previous video. Form into parade right as you approach the marshal. Maintain this till the initial. As all brakes need to be started within 4 miles of the carrier, lead should brake directly over the ship. The wingmen delay their brake by 10 seconds each. As long as no one delays more than 17 seconds, 4 aircraft should fit into the brake within that distance. Division straight in. There isn't much practical use of this, it's just a fun challenge. Runway width and crosswinds are a serious consideration here. We chose Mozdok in Caucasus as it is 230 feet wide. All the same procedures apply from the section approach, however I recommend configuring for landing early. Also, the cutaway changes from the middle of a half of the runway to a middle of a quarter of the runway. That's all I have on formation landings and ends my current focus on formation work. I hope you found it useful. Please comment below if you have anything to add and if you have a video you'd like to see me do in the future. Thanks for watching. Learning with Lovo.
Space.
Copy.
That helps me. Okay. Not too shabby.
Speak for yourself, me and Lovo almost touched tips.
Yeah, so I remember last time, Scott, you were almost like landing before the runway, so I set my landing point to be a bit forward here, so hopefully it'll be good.
Yeah, I'm seeing what I think what my other problem is as well is I'm not sure how much I should be looking at you guys and look where I should be going.
Yeah,
it's those guys until about 10 seconds ago.
200. And 4 should touch down any second here.
4's the last one apparently.
3's down.
1's
Two.
down.
4's down.
Whoa, I got a bit of jet wash there.
Okay, 1
Using the
on
brakes.
I'm kind of breaking half, so should be good.
Apologies for. I got a little bit of Dave's jet wash.
It's alright, you swiped left, I went right, and then we just swapped back again. It looked pretty funny from my point of view anyway.
Okay, 1 is stopped, so around here.
2 stopped.
Oh, 2 is looking good. Yeah, stop now, we're in perfect formation, stop guys!
Stop, fucking brake!
No! Well, close enough.
Close enough.
Hey, I'm in better formation.